Good morning, everyone, or rather, good afternoon, everyone. We'll start today's discussions. Yesterday, we were discussing about two ways of function calls. Function calls basically means parameter passing. When we are making function call, there are two ways of parameter passing. So then sometimes we call it as two ways of function calls. One is call by value, and another is call by reference. And call by value means yesterday we learned the terminologies actual parameters and formal parameters. So when you make a function call, what you pass is called the actual parameter. So when you are making a function call here, this is actual parameter, and the formal parameter is the parameter list you are giving in the definition of that function or in the declaration of that function. Okay. Now with that, call by value means the value in actual parameters will be copied into formal parameter, that is called by value. In that case, if any change is made to the formal parameter within the function, that will not reflect back to the calling function or the main function. Okay, only value is copied. The variables, formal parameter variable and actual parameter variable, they are totally different. And in case of call by reference, the actual parameter and the formal parameter, they are alternate names of same variable or same array. That means the formal parameter name is an alternate name of the actual variable which is there in the calling function or the main function. Okay, so we had this example for call by reference. You must be remembering. So by default, when you pass an array into a function, it is called by reference. And by default, when you are passing a single variable into a function, it is called by value. So call by reference, the example is here. I have the main function here and a user defined function here. And in the main function, I am creating an array, initializing it to for 5734. And I am calling so when I create an array, in memory what happens? The array is allocated, and in each location in the array or each element in the array initialized to 5734. So this is the array in the computer memory RAM. This is created, and we refer this total memory allocated for the array using the name A. A of 0 refers to 5, A of 1 refers to like that. Now when I pass that into function, so I am calling this add function, is a user defined function, add from here, and I am passing A. Now this function will be executed. When it is getting executed, the actual parameter here is A, what we are passing into the function in the function call. Now in the function definition, what you give is the formal parameter. Formal parameter is actually referring to the same array. No duplication of array is happening here. A copy of this array is not created. So A and B, names A and B are referring to the same object in the memory or same array in the memory. Okay, so because of that, using this name, this is like a nickname and this is the original name. Using this nickname, if I make a change to the array, say B of 1, if I do, so initially when I am executing this user defined function, first sum is declared variable and we are finding the sum of each element. There are 4 elements in this array, 5734. We are finding the sum. After finding the sum, so now sum is already found. 5 plus 7, 12, 15, 19 is the sum. So that is assigned to this variable. After that, B1 equal to 10 I am making. So what will happen is, since B refers to the same array, this will be changed to 10. B1, that will be changed to 10. So the array is modified as 5, 10, 3, 4, even though we are using the name B, because B and A, they are referring to the same array. So this is what call by reference. When we are passing the parameter, actually we are creating a reference to the same array or a nickname to the same array. Now after this function returns, where it returns? It returns to the main, because from main we are calling it. After the execution it returns to the main and it proceeds to the next statement. So sum will be printed. Sum is returned here. It is 19, 5, 7, 12, 15, 19. That will be printed here, and we are printing the value of a1. The name b is specifically for this function. I cannot access name b within the main function. In main we call it as a. So if I try to print a1, I will be printing 10, because at 10. So the change we made in user defined function is now reflected back in the main function. So that is because we used call by reference. Okay. In call by value, this will not happen. In call by value, when you call a function, the values in the variables are copied into the formal parameter. The values stored in the actual parameter, here it is, these are p and q are the actual parameters, that will be copied into the formal parameters, and these formal parameter variables are totally different variables, independent variables from the actual variables. So here in main p and q variables are created and assigned with 10 and 5. And when I am calling the square function, square is a user defined function here, I have defined it, and when I am passing p and q, these are the actual parameters, these are the formal parameters. The values stored in p and q, they are copied into a and b. So in computer memory, if you see, p has its own 4 bytes of memory and q has its own 4 bytes of memory, assuming that it's a 32-bit machine and one integer variable will be given 4 bytes. So 10 is stored in p, 5 is stored in q. Now when I call this function, what happens is the value stored in, so this in square function, when I am calling it, in square function a and b are created. Two variables a and b are created. You can see it here. And the value in p will be copied into a, and the value in q will be copied into b. So a gets value 10 and b gets value 5, which was already there in p and q. So now these two variables are totally independent from these two variables. Here I am finding sum of the squares of a and b. So this will find 10 square plus 5 square. So 125 will be stored in here. After that I have a statement here, b is equal to 100. In this case what happens? B is here, this will be modified to 100. And the function returns 125, which we already computed. 125 is returned and we store it in C. Okay, so 125 will be sum of the squares of the two numbers. That is 125 will be stored here and we are printing it. Now the value B is changed to 100. Now if I print values of p and q in this function, it will be printing still 10 and 5. The modification is made to the formal parameter, which is not anymore connected to the actual parameter. Initially when we are calling, these values are copied there, but after that we are modifying the value in formal parameter b. So it is the memory picture, final memory picture will be like this. P and Q will have values 10 and 5, and A and B, A is having 10, B is having 100. So this is call by value. The changes made to the formal parameter will not reflect back to the calling function. Here the called function and this is the calling function. Okay. So if I print A and B here, P and Q here, I cannot access A and B in this main because A and B belongs to the user defined function. They are local variables of this user defined function. So if I print P and Q here, I'll get 10 and 55 as the value. If I print A and B, P and Q here, here P and Q I cannot access. I can access only A and B. If I print A and B here, I will get the values 10 and 100 as the result. Is it clear? Any question you can ask. Call by value and call by reference. So passing an array into a user defined function in C, by default it is called by reference, and when you are passing individual variables, by default it is called by value. So this can be a question for your semester end examination, and differentiate between call by value and call by reference with examples. So these two are good examples. So passing an array, by default it is call by reference. There is another way of call by reference, that is called using pointers, that we will learn in the next module. Any question you have? Okay, then we will have a few more topics left in this user defined functions. We will discuss that. One is category of functions. Category of functions based on category of functions based on number of arguments and return values. So there are 5 categories of functions. Category 1 is function with no arguments, no return value. That means you have a function does not take any value, any arguments, and does not return anything. An example is this: void fun1. I am giving the name of the function. Here empty parenthesis means no arguments. So we had a function say hello without taking any input or any argument, so we left the parenthesis empty. Or we can also specify void to indicate, void is a keyword to indicate doesn't take any input, either way. Okay. And the return value also nothing, we don't return anything, that's why return value is specified as void. That is first category of function. The second category of function is the functions that take one or more inputs or one or more arguments and return nothing. Here no arguments, no return value. Second category, functions with arguments but no return value. So number of arguments can be one or more, and return value is nothing, no return value. So whatever data we are providing, it is consumed by this function, but it doesn't return anything, return any output as the return value. Now third category is function with arguments and one return value. So here there are arguments, one or more arguments and one return value. Normally as a return value you can return only one value or no value. Here no value returned, no value returned. Here one value returned of integer type. Type can be different, it can be float or double or char, etc., but typically one value. Here there is an argument, you can have more than one argument also, and there is a return value. That is a third category. Fourth category is no arguments but return value. There is a return value. No arguments but there is a return value. Here no arguments, there is a return value. This is a fourth category. And the fifth category is function that returns multiple values. Fifth category. Okay, we are not talking about the return type of that, but function that returns multiple value. Normally how this happens is a function normally can return only one value as a return value, integer or no values. Now how we achieve multiple return values is by applying a trick. Basically we pass a empty array into the function, and within the into a user defined function we will pass an empty array. Just create an array and pass it, and within the function we will populate it. So since array passing is called by reference, whatever we are doing within the user defined function, if we are filling the data into that array using the nickname, in the main function that data will be available. That way we create the feeling of, or create the scenario of returning multiple values. We will see an example for each of these. So 5 categories: function with no arguments, no return value; function with argument, no return value; function with arguments and return value; function without argument but with a return value; and finally function with multiple return values. We'll write an example for all these things and see that. So we'll start with function with no argument, no return value. No args, no return value. An example is our say hello function. Say hello. So I'll just declare this as we studied yesterday. We will have all the components of the user defined function. I'll just declare the function here, and the definition I can write here. Okay. So initially what we studied is write the definition there only. So this is what we are writing the definition here only. Instead of that, the proper recommended way is definition of the function you give after the main function. Here you just provide the declaration. Okay. Now I have the declaration and the definition does not take any argument, not returning anything. And the third element, the function call, that we have to make here. So once I have the function, I can directly call that function and pass nothing. So function declarations. So declaration here, definition here, and function call here. 3 elements. These are all potential questions actually. What are the elements of a user defined function? Okay, last semester and exam this was asked with the examples. Okay, so first category is done. We'll just execute that. Hello world is printed. I think hello 2Ds are coming. Now what is the second category? Function takes an argument but returns nothing. So void say sum of squares or simply display. I'll put simply display. We'll make it the simplest function possible. So this function, whatever value you pass into that, it will just display it. So it takes an argument but no return value. So we'll write the definition. For definition, what we need to do is simply add the body, remove that semicolon, add a body. Okay, here what I will do is printf simplest example I am giving just to understand the concept. So this function takes an argument, or it can take more than one arguments also. So takes some arguments and returns nothing. So, and we have to make a call to that function now. If you are not calling that function, it will not get executed. So you have to call it from main. And I want to pass I will pass a constant here. Okay, rather than creating a variable, I'll just. So if I compile it, no issue. So first function is executed, even second function is also executed because I call it in that order. First function is called, say hello is called, then display is called. Now the third one is there is a return value but there is no arguments. No arguments but there is a return value. One or more args, no return value. Now this one, no args, one return value. Okay, this kind of functions normally used for taking input from the user. So if it is a single input you want, we can call that statement, printf statement, and take the value from the user and return that to the main function. So input is a function, doesn't take an argument. Now what I do is I ask the user, enter a value, int x. I create a variable, local variable x. I ask the user. So you can do this in main or in a user defined function. If it is written as a user defined function, whenever you want a new value, an integer to be taken, you can call this input function multiple times whenever you want values to be taken from the user. So I'll accept that value and return it, return x. Okay, now this is an input function which takes an integer and return to whichever function is calling that this input function. So here I will call that function. So I can simply call input. You can simply call input. The problem is that the value returned by the input function I am not storing anywhere. So I cannot use it in main. So this will be executing, but nothing will happen. We don't get that value back in the. So to get that value back in my main function, what I should do is I should create a variable and assign the return value to that variable. Either I can declare it here or I can declare and immediately get it initialized by the return value provided by the input function. Okay, so now I can so I'll use the same statement here, since now I have a variable a in my main also. Value returned by input function. So input function takes the value from the user and return it. In here locally in this function it is stored as x, stored in the variable x, but when I am returning it, the return value I am storing in a. So I print it with a. I cannot access x in this main function because x is a property or a variable of input function. Okay, so where we can access x is limited. We can access x only within this function. A function defines a boundary, code boundary. It's a unit of code. So whatever the variables you declare within the function, you can use only there. But when I am returning that, this value of x will be copied into the receiving variable here. Here a is the receiving variable. Now if I execute, so value of a, this is the second type of function. Here this call message is coming from input function, because in my main, every time main will be executed first. So first say hello is executed, this message is coming, then display function is called and 5 is displayed by this function, display function definition. Now enter value is asked from input function. Here I enter a value. I'll put some value, say 100. That is scanned into variable x, and we return the value of variable x using the statement return x, and that is stored in a. So 100 gets stored in a and that is displayed. So we get value returned by input equal to 100. So a and x are totally different variables. X has its own memory, 4 bytes of memory, and a has a separate 4 byte memory. Only thing is that the value stored in X is copied into A. Okay, that is the third category of function. Fourth category is we have inputs as well as output. Okay, so I can have add function. We already had it, int A, comma int B. Okay, one or more arguments. One return value. So here, or I can make another different function called sum of squares, SOS, or something like that, SOS, sum of squares. So what it will find is a square plus b square. If a and b are the input, the result a square plus b square should be computed by this function. I will write the definition here. Int s equal to a into a, sum of square I want to find, so b into b, and return s. Okay, so function definition is done. So we need to call this function from main, otherwise this will not get executed. So no, after this I'll create a new variable s. If I want, I can reuse that variable a, but let us keep it separate. So SOS, and I'm passing, let's not take the value from the user here. I'll just maybe 4 or 3,4, 3,4, and I'll display the value returned by that. And the value is there in s, variable s. So the return values, this function SOS will find sum of the squares of the 3 input arguments, and the result will be stored here. So this is the definition of the function, a square plus b square. So when I do this, I will get the value of input arguments. To keep it simple, I am passing constants rather than variables inputted, variable values inputted by the user. So this is for third function. Sum of squares is 25. So 3 square plus 4 square is 25. That is computed within this function, and the value is returned to the main function. So this function is the fourth category of function. One or more arguments are there and one return value. Now the fifth category is little different. We need to have an array. Fifth category, what we do is, I'll show the program here, it's already here. So I have a function called getArray. That is, this array is for taking input from the user into an array, into the array. Now getArray, the argument is an array. Now how we are calling getArray? In main we are calling, and we pass an empty array. So we declared an array here, but we never populated it. We did not assign value to the elements of this array. That's what I meant by populating it. Okay, so what I do, I call getArray function and pass the array. So this empty array is passed into getArray function, and I told that passing an array into a function is called by reference. That means this is the actual parameter, this is the formal parameter. This formal parameter is actually referring to the same array. So this array ARR has one more name now, A. and I am using that name, formal parameter name, to populate the array. I ask the user enter the number, enter 5 numbers, and I using this loop for I is equal to 0, I less than 5, I plus plus. I am reading 5 numbers from the user. So this array is populated, and this array means this array only. A refers to the same array. Just I will take you to that diagram one more time. Here A and B both are referring to same array. So if I modify the array using the name B, this parent or the original array itself is modified. The only one array that is existing, that itself is modified. So here what we do is we populate multiple elements into this array. At A0 we put first number, A1 we put second number, like that. A4 we put the last number. And when this function returns, see void is there, that means we don't return any single value, but the array is getting populated. This array, whatever we are populating, it is actually this array. So the elements we stored here will be available in the main function, and we are printing it. In main we call it as ARR, and in getArray we call it as A. Okay, so this I will save. This is sufficiently large now, so I'll save it as a separate file. Okay, so first 4 categories I have saved it as a separate file, and this we will execute now. Okay, I can, since it is a project in main.c only, I can execute. That's why I'm copying it from this file to this. Any question there? Any doubt? Somebody has unmuted.
Should we mention int a of 5?
Int like a of 5.
Like won't it take in if we just put get array ARR?
No. Just name of the array. Okay, just name of the array. A of 5, if I specify, only one element will go. Suppose if I put
like the above one, we've specified it as int a of 5 in the user defined function.
Yeah, here
int a of 5
yeah. Because here you have to specify, because we are populating element by element. A of 0 means first element will be populated. We have 5. Yeah.
Int a of 5.
Here.
Yes. Should you mention that, or can
no, here is actually, if it is a one-dimensional array, you can omit it. Okay, you can leave it blank, but square bracket is required. You can leave it blank. Okay, so but if it is confusing, this is also fine. I you cannot use. I is a variable declared here that is not available here. So if I try to come, you can
put it not be a blank bracket?
Yeah, you can have blank. Yesterday only
without anything at all.
Yeah, you can have a blank. If it is a one-dimensional array, still it works fine. Okay, so some people may get confused. So I say, to keep it simple, I'll say this still it is compiling still, no issue. So some people may get confused, so I say like put a value there. Normally we find declarations like this with a value within the. If I do it here like this, it will probably create an issue. It is creating an issue. So when we are declaring an array, we need that. Because of that, people having difficulty in following this syntax, you can follow this syntax.
What if the whole thing is removed, like int a of 5?
No, then it will become an integer, single. There is no indication that it is an array, and if you are trying to access it, it will create an issue.
But it is an array in the main function, right?
Yeah, but this compiler cannot. That is not that intelligent actually. So from here, it's actually one value coming, and here it will be treated as a integer value. So whatever coming from here, it's actually, I say, the address of the array. Okay, if you can understand that. So anyway, it's one value coming from here. So if you declare, or in the formal parameter, if you are specifying int a, whatever value in ARR, there is some value in ARR, one value, single value. Array means the whole thing. Okay, ARR when you take, it's only one value that will be stored here. So it will be treated as an integer only. Now if you are trying to apply indexing on that integer, it is giving me a compilation error. Okay, so you cannot remove this square bracket. Either you put like this or put a value there. Okay.
Okay.
So what we are doing is, we pass an empty array into the user defined function and populating it here. So I am writing the definition here only, rather than declaring then later defining it. So if I execute this, so 5 numbers, this question prompt is coming from the getArray function. So in main function is the one getting executed first. In that we are calling getArray. There the message is coming, enter 5 numbers. So I will put some 5 numbers. So it is populated using scanf into a, using the name a, the alternate name of the array we created, that is the a. Using that we are populating element after element. Now in the main function I am printing it. GetArray returns here. So after the last statement, even if no return statement is there, it will automatically return. I have not put a return statement here, it will automatically return. So once it is back, the numbers are, and we are using a loop and printing it using the name ARR, the original name ARR we are printing. So the same numbers I entered within this main function is reflected back or available in the main function also. So this we refer multiple return values for the function. So this is the fifth category of function as per the textbook we are following. So returning multiple values. Okay. So any question? So one last thing probably I want to tell you is, so different ways of returning a value. Okay. So I'll yeah. So I'll take this function back into my main. Different ways of returning a value. So this is one common way. The commonly, so I want in my user defined function I am computing a value, say sum of the squares, putting it in a variable and returning that. This is one way of doing it, the most common or the simplest way of doing it. Now if you want to make that code little bit concise and optimal, we can omit this. We can directly provide, so I can comment this, I can directly provide this. So this also is going to give me the same output. Sum of squares is 25. So 3 and 4 we are passing here, you remember. So this is another way. Either you first you create do the computation and store the value in a variable and give return as. This is one way. Return as. I am commenting out because I can have only one return statement. If multiple is there, first one will return my function, first statement. So this is one way. Another is you give the expression like that only. Another one is you can put this, these are different syntaxes, put this, this is also valid. Yeah, S is not declared, so that's why it's, yeah, S is, so this is also valid. Okay. So another way is return, so you can put it in parenthesis. Now if you want to put this whole expression in parenthesis, that is also fine. Okay, I will put it as a different one, and this I will comment. So these are different possibilities when you are returning from a user defined function. Different syntaxes basically. All are doing the same thing. All are doing the same thing, returning from the user defined function. Now You can return a constant. Suppose every time you want to return same value, you can return a constant. It's another way. Okay, so here it is not relevant because we are computing some value, some of the squares, and we are returning. So normally we will have an expression like this, or a single variable which has the result of the expression. These are different ways of returning values from a user defined function. So this I can remove from here, and finally I'll keep this. Okay, I think with that we are coming to the end of user defined functions, and also module 4. Okay, we are left with only one more module. We will start it on Friday in our next class.